Hey guys, Steve Palise here. I've got a new spreadsheet you guys can download, so just go to www.paliseproperty.com and go to the resource section. Basically, this spreadsheet's about working out what happens with higher interest rates if you've got a commercial property. So we can look at basically what the cash flow is going to look like, where the break-even point is, what the repayments are like on an interest only or principal plus interest, and just see a bit of a gauge for at low interest rates and high interest rates, plus the break-even point, where your cash flow is going to lie. And I think you'll be surprised. I actually consider it a slightly lower risk than residential. So let's have a bit of a look here. So basically, you can see that we've got $1 million property at $65,000 a year, so 6.5% net return, which is achievable in like a Brisbane or a Perth, or for instance like that. Depreciation about $3,000 a year. That can be zero, it can be $7,000, depending on kind of how new the building is. No outgoings, because commercial property, the tenants pay the council rates, the water rates, the building insurances and things like that. The only outgoing you're typically going to have is that rental management, which will be kind of 3 to 7%, depending on who you use, where it is, what the rental return is, things like that. And then you enter in the interest rate. So 5.5% is a fairly fair interest rate, good interest rate at the moment. You can also have a play with the occupancy level. So you can say, look, what happens if it's vacant for 6 months of the year. And then the loan to value ratio, you can make that at 100% if you're using the deposit from another property, or if you've got a large deposit, you can make it down to 50%. The cool part about this spreadsheet is you can actually do interest only or principal plus interest. And then basically you just click this button, recalculate, and it'll tell you for this property what the break-even interest rate is. So what interest rates have to go to before you start dipping into your own pocket to be able to pay the mortgage. So on this instance, on interest only, you're 9.34%. So there's quite a lot of fat in interest rate before you start turning negative. So like I said, that for me is fairly low risk compared to a residential that's very negatively geared from the get-go. You've basically got to let that kind of buffer in place. If we go principal plus interest, obviously that's going to be a little bit lower because there's more mortgage repayments. You can put in here the loan term and how many interest periods and things like that are. And let's just recalculate here. You can see at 8.303% is where the break-even point is. So slightly lower, but still quite strong. Like most interest rates at the moment, we're talking 5.5 to 6.5%. So a bit of meat in that. The cool little table on the right is just a little summary to show you, okay, if interest rates go down to 3%, how cash flow positive the property will be. If interest rates go up to say 10%, how negative you are. So you can even see at 10%, $8,000 a year isn't typically financially crippling. So, and this is why I mentioned that I consider it sometimes lower risk than residential, but you need to get it right. You've got to have the right tenant, keep it tenanted, have a versatile premise, buy in the low vacancy rate areas and mitigate that risk. But anyway, like I said, you can download this spreadsheet, have a bit of a play, try to break it for me. And if you've got any questions, please let me know. Thanks, guys.